Hey everyone, Fractal Audio just released their new VP4, which stands for Virtual Pedalboard 4. It's a super cool and compact unit with all the amazing fractal effects. It doesn't have the amp or cab simulation that its big brothers and sister units, the Axe-FX III, the FM9, the FM3 do. Instead, the VP4 was made for using with real amps, either before the amp or in the effects loop, or in both using the 4-cable method. You can have up to 4 effects at once, but as you'll see, there's really no limit to how big your virtual pedalboard can be by using preset scenes and effects channels. Now, full disclosure, I was a VP4 beta tester and did some factory presets for it. So for this episode of the AustinBuddy TonePack Show, we did something a little different. I wanted to get some honest feedback from a pro gigging musician who'd never used Fractal gear before. So I had my buddy Nick James Boettcher of the Austin, Texas band The Reverent Few come over to my Electric Buddyland studio with his gigging amp and pedal board. So we set his pedal board up and then proceeded to recreate his key pedal rig into the VP4 and get his reactions and feedback while we dialed it all in. Spoiler alert, Nick really dug it and he wants one. So this video is for you guys that don't own Fractal Audio gear yet, but may be interested in getting the VP4 and learning a little more about it. And sort of as a bottom line, for $699 US dollars, you get a ridiculous amount of guitar effects to use, literally thousands, with your real world amp when you gig or tour or just jam at home. So we'll do this video in 2 parts with the general VP4 overview in part 1, and then we'll do maybe a little deeper dive in part 2 to get you into some of the other features. So let's get into episode 6 of this AustinBuddy TonePack Show and talk about the new VP4. So Nick, I appreciate you doing this today. So why don't you tell us a little about you? You're in the Reverent Few, which is a very hot band here in Austin, but you've got a really good musical pedigree. I know you went to Berkeley. You're a badass player. I've seen you do it many, many times. So just tell us a little about your story and your journey, you know?
Sure. My name is Nick James Boettcher. I live in Austin, play in the Reverent Few. I also write and produce for the Reverent Few, among other people. And I've graduated Berkeley in 2006. Was a professional player before that, professional player after that. Just career, lifelong musician, producer, singer, all of the above.
So today you're going to play some of the stuff for us. You've got a Collings i35 here.
That's right, with throwback pickups.
Nice. And then what you guys can't see, but we'll show you pictures of, is he's got tell them about the amp and the cab.
So the amp is a Fulton Webb. They call it the 17 water. That's one of the brainchild of Bill Webb and Jesse Duke and Steve Fulton from Austin Vintage Guitars. Bill Webb's known for doing Eric Johnson's rigs and working on his stuff. So his is the most
wizard.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He's the man.
And it's a 17 watt amp. It's my main gigging amp. I use it on everything that I can.
Yeah. And unlike the other shows that we've done in here before, we're not playing through Fractal, so it's not a direct into thing. We actually have an SM57 mic'd up on your guitar over here.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted Nick to do this, he's so perfect for it, is because this is how most people would do a gig and play. They'll have an amp, they'll go into it, and they'll have a pedal board. There'll be a 57 sound guy. How do you keep it simple? How do you make it easy, you know? But, you know, also, can you make it compact so I don't have to lug around so much gear and things like that?
Absolutely.
So what we did about a week ago is we brought in and we made 4 presets. And we're going to talk about the VP4 and how it's structured and all that. But for Nick's sake, we made a main rig preset that's got 4 scenes in it. And some effects. And then we also made a rotary scene because you have a song or two you might use a rotary on.
Absolutely.
And then we also made a harmonic tremolo scene that you'll use. And you guys are going to hear all this. And then we made a slide scene. Nick's an excellent slide player. So, yeah, he's going, but he really is. He's great. So we had a lot of fun doing it, going back and forth. I always love to try and figure out how to recreate the real world stuff in the Fractal. We know you're interested in how this is set up and how to use it and what's good. So this is pretty cool. So I'm going to show you guys. Right now we have this thing in what's called gig mode. But you can literally just set this up And the way to think about this, what's in here, right? So there are, for every letter of the alphabet, there's a bank, A through Z. And every bank has 4 presets. So A1 to 4, B1 to 4, C1 to 4. So it's over 100 presets available to you. You'll have factory presets in it when you get it, but you're going to want to make your own, right? And you'll be able to do that. You can save the factory presets using the Fractal tools to your computer and reload them anytime you want, but be able to program your own stuff. So for in Nick's case, we have bank A here. You can see this on here, bank A, right? A4. So I'm going to pick the preset. And so preset 1 is Nick's main rig, 2 is his rotary rig, 3 is his harmonic tremolo, and 4th is his slide rig. So he literally can set this up and he can run just in preset mode if he doesn't need to turn on a stomp box, and he can just do that. But that's not how most people work. They like their stomp boxes. So the second mode is in every preset, there are now 4 scenes. What's a scene? If you know what a Bradshaw rig is, you're familiar with this concept. A scene says I have several effects, but I may need to turn on 2 or 3 at the same time, and I don't want to try and touch 3 or 4 buttons to do that. So this will let you set up a scene, and I'll show you in a minute. For example, you can see the drive and the reverb are lit up. But if we go to his Octavia, watch what happens. The delay came on, the drive changed to the Octavia, and the reverb happened with just 1 button. So that's the beautiful thing about using scenes. If you've got a complex sound that you've got to go to, you don't want to step on 3 or 4 pedals to try and get there at once, right? So in this one, it said, all right, I'm going to change out of the Timmy block to the Octavia block, and I'm going to turn the delay on. And in fact, I'm going to go to not the main delay A that we had, we're going to go to delay D. So the beautiful thing on that is each one of these effects, which I'm now going to show you, so is that each effect itself actually has 4 different channels in the effect. So even though this is drive block A and it's set up for Timmy, if Nick wanted to try something different, he just holds it down and he can change to a face fuzz right now. Or if he wants, he can change to his Octavia. Or he can change to a louder Timmy. Or back to his default Timmy. You guys see how I did that? Number 1 was holding that particular drive block, and then this just channels A, B, C, and D when you're in that mode, and that's how you can pick them. A, B, C, D. See the lights on here, kind of? How these lights are a little different? So that helps you figure that out. So like if you want to use this delay, for example, we turned it on and off here, but if I pick this, right now we just like mono tape, so all of them say mono tape. But he could set up delay number C to be something like an electro harmonic, a Memory Man Deluxe, or a 2290, or something like that. So the other thing to remember about these, and I'll show you, it also has a built-in tuner, which is killer. You need that.
Gotta have it.
And there's a way to get to that tuner anytime. And this button that's flashing is a tempo. So you could tie the tempo to the delay, which we did for you. So, you know, for different songs, you got different delays. You can come here and you can change that if you want to keep it all in that one preset. You can also save those delay tempos by preset. So if you had a song that had a very different one, you could make a preset for that song, and you won't have to worry about tapping it. When you go to it, it's already close to what you want. If that makes any sense. So when I'm punching these 2 together, this brings up the tuner and the tap tempo. And to get out, I just hit that again by itself, and I'm out. When I punch these 2 together, when I'm in gig mode, I get preset, scene, effects, or just give me the tuner. And again, that'll take the tuner out. But let's listen to Nick play a little bit through it. And I'm going to just sort of crank through a couple of different sounds while he's doing it. And you'll see there'll be a camera that'll show you what I'm doing here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into what's called preset mode. And there are 4 presets. And now I'm going to go into the scene mode. So now if I click any one of these, it'll change what he's doing. So right now we're just going to hear Nick play his main gig sound that he would play with the Reverent Few. For those of you who don't know, that's Can't Stop, Won't Stop, one of my favorite songs that you guys do. So for this one, all we've got here is we've got a spring reverb, and we've got a Timmy that's just adding a little bit of lift to your sound, a little bit of grit.
Yeah,
right?
just a little extra bite. I love how the amp sounds, but in most cases, you want a little extra hair on it, and you don't want to have to, you might not have the ability to crank the amp so hard. Yeah. So ideally, you just dime the amp if you can. Maybe not quite as much as diming, because if your sound guys don't like that so much.
But you got to push through at some parts and then pull back with vocals and things like that. And
that's right.
Kinda, you know.
Yeah, and like I love the Timmy because it's very, very transparent. It's very open sounding. It sounds like your amp with just a little extra bite on it.
Yeah, it's a cool pedal.
Yeah, and so it tends to be my leave-on pedal. Yeah. And that's,
so
I really like that.
You'd use that with a boost sometimes, but you'd also maybe even a heavier Timmy for like a lead sound or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And as we've explored this, like being able to, like if I could have like a stack of Timmys and I use them at different ranges, that would be amazing. And with this, you basically can just do that. Like, there we go.
You could do that. So like this is a lead Timmy sound that we put together. So it's going to be just a little bit louder, a little more gain.
It's really dynamic. Like the gain really, it feels right, and that's the challenge with a lot of these things. Is well, you're so used to just having the stomp box in your amp, but there's nothing about it that makes me go, I don't know. I kind of wish it was this. It sounds great.
Yeah, it doesn't sound digital. It sounds like the Timmy pedal. I mean, It sounds like what you want, you know. So
yeah, it just sounds right.
Another sound that you've got in here that you like is the delay. So this thing has delays. We're going to talk about that in a minute, all that's in here. So this is the one that you like, and as I recall, this has got a tap tempo that you like to it. So if you were in a song, you could sit here and you could tap out the tempo that you wanted in the song for every song.
That's
so
right.
Let's hear what it sounds like. Yeah.
Sounds nice. Yeah,
you like just a little bit of delay,
just a little
space.
Dark flavor behind it, something that's not invasive to the part, because it tends to be support rather than like some people use the delay as an actual function of the part.
Effect, and you're not really using
and like
it that
I just
way.
want a flavor that kind of just adds some
texture and atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds great. It sounds great on that. And then the last one that we've got in your main rig thing is, and I've seen you cutting on this before, is an Octavia. So this one's going to get a little fun. That's cool. Now that's based off of the Experience Hendrix pedal, and I had one and kind of figured out how I could clone mine.
Yeah.
And then sold it. That's the fun thing. You buy this, and all of a sudden you're like, sell your pedal because you don't need it anymore.
I'm not getting rid of my pedals, but
you shouldn't get rid of that pedal. That's a great pedal.
You know, and that's the thing too. Is like, you know, I've built my world out of these sounds, and I've had no problems finding those sounds. Deciding on the sounds is the hardest part.
You guys are wondering, all right, what is in here? If you know anything about Fractal stuff, all the Fractal effects are in there, not the amp and the cab. But just check this out. And I made a list here for us. So, you know, like we got a drive here, right? So the other cool thing about this is if you go to the effects scene on it, in the drive, you can turn it on and off just like a stomp box. And you guys are watching this. But if I hold it down, it gives me 4 channels of drive. So I can literally have 4 different stomp boxes that I can switch into if I need to. You don't have to, but they're there with just in a single preset. And so This particular one has those. You know, there's 2 different Timmy settings, an octave and a phase fuzz. But this thing has 63 drive pedal types, guys. There are fuzzes in here, there are octavias, there are distortion pedals, there are overdrives, there are boosts. I mean, just think about how many pedals that is that you're getting in a virtual pedal thing. Just that alone is like probably worth the price of admission. But it doesn't stop there, right? So you can get out of this now. If you go to reverbs, you know, turn them on and off here, there's 78 types of reverbs in here. Spring reverbs, chambers, large plates that sound great from a studio, rooms, the spacious effects ones that sound like you're in, you know, traveling through the galaxy. I mean, there's just a ton. So anything you're really interested in tone-wise, section-wise, you can find it. And it's set up so that every time you go into those, there's a simple mode that looks just like regular knobs that you're used to. And then if you really want to get nerdy about it, like I do at times, you can go into the expert mode and really go in and tailor stuff. You can add pre-delay. You can modify how the EQ looks. So, but I'm going to just go through a few more. So like the delay we talked about, or we played a second ago, there are literally over 100 delay types in this. 28 of them are your standard delay types like a monotape, a digital, an analog delay, some of the more notorious, wonderful stomp boxes that some of our favorite players use. But then there's also 45 different plex delay types, which is a kind of a combination between echo and reverb. And there are 33 multi-tap types, you know, and 22 mega-tap types. There's some Alan Holdsworth swell type things in there. Just more than you probably could say paralysis by analysis in a way, because there's just so many choices. But the point is, if you've got a tone in your head, this can help you try and find a way to get there. 20 choruses, 32 flangers, 16 phasers, which includes 2 univibes. So if you want to get your Hendrix on, it's got that. 18 different pitch types. It's got a virtual capo. If you've got to deal with a singer who can't sing in standard tuning, you can tune your whole guitar down a half step or even a whole step, like using this thing. It's just like whammy pedals, octavers, a pog pedal. Then it can do fixed and intelligent harmony. I helped do a Jessica Allman Brothers type custom harmony preset for the factory presets. So you can be one guitar player playing both the parts. It's really, really cool for that. There are 9 different wah-wah types. There is a pedal jack on the back where you can have up to 2 pedals that can do different things. 7 types of tremolo, 17 types of graphic EQ to sculpt it. I know I'm going on and on, but just a couple more. There's a rotary block you heard. There's a synthesizer block, a monophonic synth where you can get flute sounds or, you know, funky old, 70s funk sounds. There's a ring modulator for that stuff, a 4-mont block, a resonator block, a stereo enhancer, a gate expander. Just tons of stuff like that. So all the stuff that's in the Fractal universe that you've heard about, the Axe-FX III, the FM9, that people like John Petrucci and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Andy Woods, and I can go through a long, that's all in this box. So pretty cool. You know, you've got options to a lot of different kinds of things. So as Nick and I were just running with this thing together and playing with it, we discovered this thing is powerful. I mean, you know, you only can get 4 effects, but that doesn't mean that, don't worry if you like have an 8 effect pedal board if you don't use them all, because it's got the Fractal gapless switching in it. So you can go from one preset to another and access 4 more. For example, we don't have a rotary and a tremolo in this particular preset because it won't fit. We've got 2 drives and a delay. But if I go to the next preset, it's right there. He can get its rotary. So why don't you show us a little bit about the rotary? And you've got a pedal here where you can control the rotary's actual function. So
It sounds really natural, and we were talking about this when I was like, ooh, that sounds cool, but can we control the ramp? And Buddy's like, of course. And we went in and we can actually control the ramping speed, because, you know, you don't want to just go instantly from slow to fast. It would be kind of jarring. And a real Leslie has this ramp to it, but like on my Leslie, it has, you hit a button and then it changes. And like with the expression pedal, it'll do the ramping, but I can also go, I don't want it to be to my top fast speed. I can actually stop it before it's all the way there. Or if I want it to kind of move, like people that use Leslie's all the time, they're constantly switching back and forth, and getting the motion changes. And you can do it with the expression pedal, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, you have a real Leslie as well as pedals.
Yeah.
So, but this was perfectly, if you can do a gig with this, no problem, not have to carry that big Leslie around.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of good. There are benefits to having a very small footprint.
Yeah. My Leslie's 100 pounds, and every gig you're just like, but it sounds so good, but I don't know.
Do I want to bring it out tonight?
And you can't bring it in on a fly rig.
Yeah.
So
no, you gotta have a way to do it.
So if I want a pedal board where I can go, if I'm flying somewhere to go play, which happens pretty often, I have to sacrifice a lot of things that I would prefer to have if I even with my regular pedal board, my fly rig pedal board, I'm still limited to about 8 pedals.
Yeah.
And and this is like, oh, I can do them all.
As long as you can get from preset to preset, you've got no limits on it.
Yeah,
That's
which is
really
pretty
key.
amazing.
So let's try now the harmonic tremolo, because that was another one of your go-to things.
Yeah. Sounds nice. It's really rich. They've really dialed in the harmonic tremolo. I think it sounds lush and deep. It's got that low end swirl to it it's hard to get without the amp. I've played a lot of those amps. I love them. Yeah. I've owned a couple, and it takes a lot to build that into an amp. It makes them heavier and bigger, cumbersome, expensive. And they really dialed it in nice.
Yeah, it sounds good. And you can still control some of it. You can make it deeper. I mean, you and I, we came in and we could go, we had more depth and there was a lot less. And you said right about in the middle is where you liked it. So you've got more control over it than you would with a regular amp that may or may not have that intensity kind of thing on it. It all depends, right?
Absolutely. And there is this element of commitment to the amp. You're like, that is what it is. And there's a joy in that and this sort of exploration of it. But once you know what that is and you hear it and you go, I know the sound that I want, that's where these come into play. And you go, oh yeah, I want it to feel this way. And it sounds pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a real harmonic, built into your amp over there.
Yeah.
So the last one that we'll do that was part of what Nick's gig rig would kind of be, where these are sounds he could do his whole Reverent Few thing as a slide one. And this one's going to use a little compressor on it. So let's hear how that one sounds. Oh man, I wish I could play slide that good.
Well, I like this, even when in these examples, I'm trying to show too the dynamic range. I mean, that's something that doesn't feel, even with the slide rig, how I have the compressor set, it still has motion to it, where sometimes you worry that maybe it'll just be like, that sound, but there's a real sweet dynamic range to all these sounds that I'm really impressed with.
It's working with how you do it. I have a factory preset called, hopefully it makes it in, it's submitted, called Lowell Slide that does the two 1176s in series trick.
Love it.
And it just kind of sits there and sustains and sustains and sustains and goes at the end, like the real ones would. Like,
absolutely.
You can hear them live doing that. So okay, so we talk a little about how people are going to use this, and we think most guys, most players, not all guys and girls, are going to use this. Just basically put your guitar into it, and then you're going to run it straight into your amp. You can do a stereo rig with this. You can use this rig in a mono effects loop in your amp, whether it's a parallel or a series one. I have a Bogner here that has both a parallel and a series, And I used it trying in both modes, so it'll work for that. So one guy might think, you might want to think, well, I've got 3 or 4 big wet pedals. Well, maybe that just becomes your wet pedal and you keep your dry pedals and you use this totally in your effects loop. That's another way some people will do it. But most of you guys aren't going to do that. So if you're in the disabled mode, it's not in gig mode, which is what you want it to be in default. But in case you don't want to do it that way, what you do is you turn this little knob from A1, you see that's in yellow, to S1, and then down here. And now each one of these buttons is just, you're in stomp box mode. So this goes on and off. That goes on and off. That goes on and off. You're turning them on and off. All right? And if you hold it, it's just going to go on and off here because you're not in gig mode. So if you only have 4 effects and you just want to use it that way, that's the simplest way to use it right there. You start your preset up, when you do this, and you come in here, boom, and then you're done. But I personally like that gig mode a lot. And so I'm going to go back to that gig mode here. And by the way, you can also calibrate expression pedals in here, which is what you need to do. So you can have all kinds of different expression pedals that you're wondering, will it work with it? It doesn't matter. This will read it going up and down, and it will read it to it, so it will work with any kind of good expression pedal. It doesn't need it to be a specific one.